Welcome to the Puppeteers podcast. In this episode, we're talking to the mech man, Jim Kroupa. My guest host, Cam, did a nice intro for him in the episode, so you'll hear that in a minute. I'm dropping 2 episodes this week to get started off. The next episode is with puppeteer and special effect artist Rick Lazzarini. After that, we're planning on going to monthly episodes. Follow us on Twitter at PuppeteersPod, and be sure to tweet at us who you think we should talk to next. With that said, here's the first episode. I accidentally was not recording our visual for the first 20 minutes, so they'll see a lot of you in the beginning. Well, again, being our first one, still working out a couple of the kinks, but yeah, we're excited for sure.
You could just reshoot yourselves and just mime your words.
Absolutely.
That actually went through my head. I was like, this is ridiculous.
So how you guys doing?
Good. How you doing?
It's good to see you.
I keep looking at myself instead of you guys.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being our first guest for this. It's all new to us, but we're just really happy to have you. So thank you.
Absolutely. This is new to you. Well, you can only imagine what it is to me.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
This is true.
Yeah.
Well, we're just gonna do a quick intro in and sort of set you up for the audience, and then we'll get into it. So.
Yep.
Welcome everybody to the first episode of
Puppeteers.
And we have the person who created the name that we're who's very kindly let us borrow it for this podcast.
The legend,
the man, the myth, the puppet legend, Mr. Jim Kroupa, who's been in the game for over 40 years. And
if you don't know his name, you definitely know his work.
Yes,
40 years, huh? Hey, thanks for that.
Anytime. But Jim has been a writer, a director, a puppeteer, and then is also really the guy for puppet building and mechanics. And we're so happy to have him here. So Jim Kroupa, welcome to Puppeteers.
Oh, glad to be on Puppeteers. Great title.
Yeah,
Thanks, right?
Well, can you talk a little bit about what the origin of that is? Because it's something that the three of us have known about for a while, but
the Puppeteers?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
That's the book. When I write my book, because it's the puppet world, so everybody always thinks, oh, you guys must have so much fun, everything's, and you know what, we do, we have a blast most of the time, but there are those shoots you're on or those builds you're on, and it's what I call the dark side of puppetry. None of us want to talk about. So I thought, I'll put those stories. I tell some of them at my class, but I'll put those stories into a book, and some of them are pretty cool, things that have happened, babies we've cooked on a set, things like that. And again, the Puppeteers is just it's the dark side of puppetry, because everybody, at whatever job it is, there's good and there's bad. So.
Well, and that's what it is, right? Because it is your work. It is your life's work. And so there are days where I'm sure you love it, but there's also days where it's just a job.
Yeah. Mostly I have a good time. What I try to do is amuse myself when I'm building now, and come up with new things and stuff, because it's like any job. If you're building mechanical eyes, at a certain point, they're always the same. So it's kind of cool when something comes in and it can be different. It's always sort of the same thing I have with the O'Neill every year. I always think, all right, so what mech do I want to build? And Pam's always telling me, oh, you've done it for 12 years now. Just start from the beginning. Just go over it all again. I'm like, nah, that doesn't excite me. I like to also challenge myself and challenge my students. Last year we built a very complicated mech. I'm amazed we got it done.
Oh, wow.
I thought it was going to.
This is the National Puppetry Conference at the O'Neill Theater Center, for people who don't know. And so it's been 12 years now that you've been involved with that?
Yeah, well, I guess it's 13, because the first year I did it, I only gave a lecture. I didn't actually have the class. So I came up just to see what it was all about, and I gave an hour's talk and video and stuff.
Master
like that,
class,
so.
yeah. Great.
When you've done that class, has that evolved a lot itself since when you first started teaching it?
Yeah. Again, the class to me, it's pretty straightforward. Mostly, the way I build mechanisms in the first place is it's pretty standardized. I've discovered over the years of taking other people's mechanisms apart on a shoot, say. And I'm always amazed where they use 6 different size screws
Oh yeah.
on one puppet, and I'm like, well, why wouldn't it be the same screw? And I have one tool, and I can take it all apart, So things like that, I've sort of standardized my thinking on it all. But the O'Neill class is kind of a challenge for me because a lot of the people that take the class, I remember the rat, the eyebrow mech.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where the class kind of evolved. Like the first year I did it was kind of funny. I came up with a real basic control, kind of like I was working on some of the rats and stuff with Henson, and I was doing one of these control things to work the head up and down and stuff. So I said, all right, we'll build one of those. They're pretty straightforward. You get to use the materials, different ways of thinking about it. So in my mind, I'm thinking this is going to take 3 days to build, right?
Yeah.
Well, by the end of the first night, we were done with the mechanism.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, okay, we got 2 more days of this. Now what are we going to do? So I saw that, the people you get, most of them are, it isn't new to them. They're interested in it. So you can be a little more advanced.
They're in the field and they're just learning to know more. They're not total neophytes too.
Right, and every now and then we do get like a housewife, and they're just interested in it. It's like anything, the magic of it. How do they do that? So it's kind of fun to learn that too. So basically, it's sort of how the class evolved. It's all about. The first thing I do is it's all about materials.
Yeah.
If you don't know where to get the stuff to build it, you're not going to be building very much. So I supply that. And then from the materials list, I have lots of samples there, and just my formula on mechanisms is a very small portfolio, I'd say.
Yeah.
I know one thing. The application.
In going there myself, I know one thing I thought the first time I went, and I think I've heard a lot of other people say, is how generous you are with all that information of where you get stuff and those techniques. People feel like you're almost giving away secrets.
Well, you are in a way, but what's the point of it? A lot of people say, "Oh, aren't you afraid of like losing, work in the future, or they'll go elsewhere or something?" And in a way, well, that's better than me dying with all the secrets or something, or just stopping, and disappearing, So why not? And to me, my whole philosophy on the class is not, you don't leave my class saying, "Oh, now I can build Jim Kroupa mechanisms." You're experiencing my style, and I'm expecting you to apply it to your own style. Because I tell you, it happens at least with a handful of students over the years, where, as I always say, "Oh, that's cool that you changed that, you did that. I'm going to steal that. I'm going to use that in the future." That type of thing. And that's what it's about. It's about evolving. There's no clear-cut way. things change, materials change. We used to use nylon all the time. We used to use wood. And the wood would swell up from sweat. And
the maple, you said, right?
Yeah, or aircraft ply. But, all right, so you use that stuff. That's fine. Then we discovered plastics, and we all turned to nylon. And nylon was great, except you got to be really careful with it. It's got a low melting point. So when you put it on a lathe, or if you put it on a bandsaw, all of a sudden it'll go liquid on you.
Yeah.
So then we I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay. No, that's okay. Go ahead.
No, then we found Delrin, and to me, there's probably stuff better than Delrin, but to me, Delrin is the thing. That's the stuff we use, and that's all. It's just raining here. It's gotten really dark outside, so I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's coming here soon too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been cloudy all day.
So anyway.
But no, so this is great. So these are obviously materials that you use as a professional, but if you don't mind, we'd love to go back to way back to when you were starting. When did you first get interested in puppetry, and what were some of the first materials that you used to build your first puppets? Because I'm sure you were using a bandsaw and Delrin.
Well, if we can go back even a little bit further, sure. How did you even find puppetry, or what were you doing before puppetry actually?
Well, I started puppeteering and building stuff. I was like in 4th grade. I grew up. I was less influenced. Ultimately I got influenced by the Muppets and everything. But I knew Bill Baird and his shows in the city, and I grew up with Chuck McCann and Paul Ashley's puppets, who were actually before Chuck McCann. They were actually on the Sandy Becker show, which I think was Channel 5 in New York. Channel 11 then had Chuck McCann and the Paul Ashley puppets. And Paul Ashley's puppets are mechanized, most of them. They're hard. They're I guess they're Scholastic. I believe they're Scholastic. So I grew up on that. And from that, I sort of just liked the idea of puppetry. And maybe I'm one of those weird closeted performers, where I found it so I couldn't go on a stage too easily. But with the puppet, you're kind of removing yourself from that. So it was a comfort thing there.
Yeah.
So I started building puppets way in the beginning, Paul Ashley style. I started using styrofoam and carving it and stuff and trying to make. And then with my father, he was working with me making wooden puppets. I didn't have band saws. It was all hand tools.
Yeah.
So if you had to hollow out a head, you used the bit and auger thing. You're going like this and stuff. So it was really like these handmade things. The foam and using the foams and all that didn't happen until I started seeing Sesame Street like in '68.
Yeah.
But even before that, though, when I first got interested with the Muppets or introduced to them was through Ed Sullivan, when they were on the Ed Sullivan show before the Muppets.
Features. Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember as a kid, that was a weekly thing. The TV guy would show up in the mail. I'd immediately go to the Ed Sullivan night, and see if the Muppets were on.
Yeah.
So, so it kind of like, but the early stuff was definitely all television stuff. I went a couple times into the city to see a Bill Baird performance when he had his theater on Barrow Street. I went later on in life, right before it closed. I went a couple more times, but that was like a big deal. I mean, that was Broadway, going to see Broadway, see a Bill Baird show.
Absolutely. So then were you then incorporating the puppets into, like, were you able to do shows with them in school, or were you just doing performances on your own? How were you able to manifest that?
I actually started doing birthday parties, and I would do like a half-hour show, and it was like $5, which to a kid was a lot of money, but all the money went right back into building the puppets. In high school, well, I should say middle school, junior high, I guess you want to call it. We had a video set up, and I started doing appearances on some talk show. I guess they had the students doing talk shows. So because I did puppets, they asked me if I would, like, it's kind of what we're doing here, go on and
go on and do it.
And make an appearance. So I kind of got introduced firsthand with the TV stuff that way. But then when I went to high school, that was in Baldwin, Long Island. I grew up in Baldwin, Long Island. And my high school years I spent out in Southampton. And what was really cool about Southampton was they had just opened up a brand new high school that had a color TV studio. With the editing decks and everything. And it sat there. So I got myself hooked up with the librarian that was supposed to run this thing. And we started making puppet tapes, just goofing around, making stuff. And then I started doing teaching tapes with teachers. I was kind of, it was like Sesame Street formula. There'd be little puppet things mixed in.
Right.
So, but by doing that, I got all the hands-on technology, working with monitors and, because, it's like, it's one of those things you have to learn how to do it. You put somebody who's never done it before in front of a monitor.
Oh, they're lost. Yeah.
Absolutely.
They're lost. Right.
It's not. Yeah.
Right. But that's great because then you're learning the performance as well as the directing and the editing and all that technical side too.
Right. And then when I built my puppets, there weren't many puppets that were what I would call a mechanical puppet. They were, typical Muppets with your hand inside. Yeah. Once I got to college, I started getting more into like, but I would use all the wrong materials. Like I made a set of my teacher. I teacher at Pratt Institute. I went to Kermit Love taught there, and I worked with him for like 8 years, almost 9 years. When I first started going to school and I started building these things, I was using styrofoam balls. Which is
of course,
and
that's how everyone started.
Yeah, but to me, it's like the mech works. It didn't matter. The fact that I used such an inferior material, and so it got me introduced into buying. At that time, we didn't have what we have available to us now, but baby rattles. There were a toy called Wacky Stacks.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It was a ball within a ball within a ball within a ball, kind of like those stacking Russian dolls.
Right.
Yeah.
So they were, you learn again. I mean, we still do this now. We still always trying to find. Although when it comes to, well, you guys know the plastic balls, where to go to put really good plastic balls. Take my class out there. And
That's right.
that's one of the secrets we give away. By the way, and the odd thing, I just got off the phone with them, and they stopped producing the sheet version of that ABS material.
Oh, really?
You're kidding.
So now you got to buy, but you can get it at McMaster. So.
Oh, you
Okay.
can. Oh, really? It's interesting. So it's not even going to be in craft stores anymore because it's a modeling.
They have the 16th-inch stuff in stock.
Oh, that's
But they're not doing the 1/8 inch anymore, and the stuff from the McMaster's fine. It's just beige as opposed to gray, and you can get it in black also, which is kind of nice. If you
that
need,
is nice. That's slick.
Glasses or something. When we rebuilt the Muppets, a lot of the glasses, like Bunsen's glasses and stuff, we did the black ABS. So if they get scratched, they're still black.
They're still black. Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So
So did you?
sidetrack. This is the way I teach, by the way. Hard to keep me
we
on
know.
the road.
We know. But
Well, actually, let me take one question there. What I'm wondering is, like, at what point in your work did you realize there was kind of a big jump? That jump from the styrofoam eyes to the more professional look that your work has now? Where was in your career that jump? Would you say?
Oddly enough, me getting into when I worked at Kermit's for 9 years before he closed the shop, John Orberg, who I work with, built most of the mechanics. I would do odds and ends of things, and I had like a drawer full of experiments I would do. Hands that would the fingers would go and stuff like that. And every now and then we'd use them, but I didn't really do too many mechs there. I built more like the understructures of puppets or carved heads. We carved a lot of foam heads. So the reason I got into the mechs was more from a professional point of view. I was working on Wubbulous World of Dr. Seuss and a couple of other things with Henson, and I hated their mechanisms, and they were just so difficult to work. And sometimes it wasn't the mechanism. I mean, when I say I hate the mechanisms were usually really good, but the activation of the mechanism was so difficult. It was hard to separate, controlling the eyes and doing the lip sync at the same time.
Yeah.
So it was through working with what I always would, I don't want to say inferior mechanisms, but the mechanisms that made it really difficult for me. I would, in my head think, God, I would have done this, I would have done that. And I'd go home and I'd do a mock-up.
Yeah, you can tell it was made by someone who probably wasn't a performer, right?
Right. Usually, and a lot of the people at Henson originally had more of an engineering background, which is kind of cool. I have no engineering background. That's why it took 3 hours.
You dominated the field anyway.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Well, it's just, I dumb it all down. My attitude is like when it's really difficult, if it's a really difficult mechanism that if something happens, which it will break, something will happen to it, it makes it really hard to fix it. So if you can build a really simple, effective mech, I think in the long run, it's better.
Yeah,
I'm total old school on stuff like this.
Yeah, jumping off that, we were talking earlier. At what point, or actually, let me phrase this way: when was like the last time you had to build a mech that you were like really stumped on, and it was like had to be a new technique that you hadn't used before? Because like you said earlier, like eyes are eyes, kind of, different shapes, but the mechanism is pretty much the same.
Yeah. Well, we just built these things for Brian Henson. Just did a movie out in California. Happytime
Murder.
Oh,
Happyland Murders.
Happytime Murder, I think.
Happytime Murders.
Yeah.
Right.
Some people are probably watching. Like, he doesn't know the name of the thing he's working on. No, I'm just kidding. No, I know. I get it.
Give me a break.
Yeah.
I'm old.
As long as the check clears.
That's right.
That was the happiest time on that build. I got the check.
Actually,
it was a really good build. It was actually fun. I hadn't worked with Brian closely like that in a while. It was kind of like fun. But anyway, we built these walk-around characters, and they weren't mechanized per se, although there were mechanisms. but they were full figure, like 4 feet tall, and they were built on harnesses, and the person would wear it and be attached to it, and then they're wearing a green suit, and in post they can wipe out. It's kind of like the way they shot when they shoot those horror films where the guy's running around the jungle in a bright red outfit, and then they can put the character in.
Oh yeah,
it's kind of the reverse of that. Somehow they can clean it all up in post. So it was kind of interesting. I had never built like a full figure that scale that had to be totally like mechanized and worked by one person.
Right.
So I used a drum harness that it all hung off of to make it really simple to get in and out and adjust it, because I had no idea who was going to be wearing it, what size shoes.
Oh, yeah.
So I had to make shoes even that were attached to their feet, that since I don't know who's going to be wearing it, I couldn't put a shoe. I couldn't attach it to a shoe. So I found these 3-wheeled rollerblades from California, and it was one size fits all. They all ratcheted. They were amazing.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So I took the wheels off, and that's the thing. And anyone could snap these things on and walk around with these.
Almost like a ski. Isn't that how most
like
ski boots are?
It's kind of like a ski boot thing. Yeah, it's kind of like that. But it's just the sweetest. And it had 3 wheels, so that the way it was triangular when you wore it, so you had stability.
Right.
Sometimes you gotta. I put a Delrin sole on it to give him strength in his ankles and stuff.
Out of curiosity, did they bring you in to work on that there, or did you get to work at it in your shop and then send it over?
No, Henson's really nice about that. They let me work at home, and then usually I'll bring the puppet back to Henson to finish. Like on these characters, I had to bring them. I had everybody there was available to me to finish them, because it was a very short build, but I built like 5 of these things. Yeah. So at home, it was just a lot easier for me to do it with my materials and my machinery, everything I'm comfortable with. Even something as simple as a bandsaw. There's a comfort level with a tool that can literally take your hand off. And like when you go to the O'Neill, I'm a lot less comfortable with that bandsaw because I don't know what that bandsaw is like. It's like a dog. Is that friendly? Does your dog bite? And it bites you.
Or playing
Well,
someone
that's
else's
not my dog.
guitar or something. Yeah.
Yeah, so you get a comfort zone. So Henson lets me build a lot of. Anytime I do IMAX and stuff for them too, I build it all at home, and I have everything. It isn't like when I worked at Puppet Heap when we were rebuilding all the Muppets. They wanted me to work there, and they didn't have anything. So it's that whole thing. Well, what do I bring? And there's just so much that when you work in your own shop, you probably experience this all the time. You know exactly where that drawer screws or the taps are, or where And the attitude there was, we'll order the stuff, whatever you need. And I'm like, well, I really don't know what I need, maybe till I need it. And then it's a day before I get it because, they got to ship it overnight it to me or something. Yeah. So anyway, Henson let me build those at home, and we finished them at the Henson shop in Queens. Mm-hmm. So
that's great.
It was a good build though, and they look great. I never saw any footage yet. They're a little top secret on the footage, but apparently everything's. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it. We just, I think they've only released some posters. I don't even think there's any short.
No,
there's nothing
so far.
Yeah, just
I've been Googling. I've seen 2 pictures that somebody took on set. Because I figured they'd be like, just be out there. People, whenever these things are shot, people are taking pictures and posting them. I've seen 2 things. One had a warthog. I don't know who's working it, but at a hot dog stand with who's the one?
Melissa McCarthy is the.
Melissa McCarthy, is at a hot dog wagon, and there's a warthog there for whatever reason.
Wow.
I didn't read the script. They offered. I said,
"That's right."
I'd rather be surprised.
Those are just details, right?
And the things I built were background characters. So the idea was they take these shots on the street, and it's downtown wherever. And there's also puppets walking around.
Yeah. Make it part of the world.
I tried to sell them. Sure. Well, it's a world where puppets and humans coexist, as puppets. So I was talking to Brian about it. I thought it would be funny if, you had like a marionette walking down the street but he's just like dragging his controls behind him. You know, it's like, you know.
What do you think of that?
Yeah, well, he was like, no, that's not really what we're going for. I said, all right, well,
yeah, I can see it.
all right.
That's right.
Just throwing it out there.
Right.
It'll be in the film. Watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
So when you ended up at Pratt, was it just a coincidence that Kermit was there teaching, or was that?
Yeah.
Did you see come out?
I ended at Pratt. I never intended to go to Pratt. In fact, in high school, the guidance counselors, because I was doing all this TV, running this TV studio, this color TV studio in high school, they convinced me I should go to a school for video arts, and stuff like that. So I think Rhode Island School of Design, had a thing, and Oswego, and then a couple others. And I was getting accepted at all these. And I went to a college day at Pratt with my parents, not to see Pratt. There were other schools there I wanted to see. So of course you walk in, and the first thing they say is, "Well, what are you into? What's your interest?" And I'm like, I'm that, I'm a high school guy. I'm not the first one to say, "Oh, I do puppets."
Yeah.
My mother's like, "He's a puppeteer." They're like, "You're kidding, really? Oh, you'd consider going to Pratt?" And they said, Kermit Love, be a theater major. Kermit Love works in the theater department. He teaches a puppetry class. And I knew Kermit Love's name. I didn't know him at all.
Right.
How did you know?
People who don't know, built the original Big Bird, and really influential.
Any of his specialty were the big puppets like Thog, Sweetums, and Big Bird and stuff.
How did you said at that point you did know his name? Was that how you knew his name?
I just knew he was one of the designers of the Sesame Street Muppets. He was listed. He didn't have Google then. It's like it was
that's right.
It would have been 1976.
Yeah, no Google. No Google.
No Google. It's like, so I knew his name, and also from credits, like when Muppets did their specials and stuff, the Muppet musicians of Brenham and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I knew a lot of the builders' names. I didn't know any of the builders at all. So anyway, make a long story short, that day at Pratt, I met with the head of the theater department and basically got accepted on the spot. I mean, I went through sending in pictures of my artwork and puppets and sculptures and stuff like that, whatever other. I don't know. I've gone through this with 3 of my kids now, and I'm amazed with I was like, I don't remember doing any of this crap.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, it's like, really? All this paperwork to get the kid into the school. I was like, I went there and I said, sure.
Right. That's right. That's great.
So anyway.
Great.
So that's
is that how Kermit, did he bring you in then to work with him after that, or how did that start?
Yeah, he started, so that would have been, 76 into 77 that first year. And I started working on his workshop on the weekends. He had just started his own shop with another Pratt graduate who actually was an engineering major there. And then he switched his senior year into the theater department, which they had just started. Yeah. And did theater stuff and started working with Kermit. That's John Orberg. So John was the first theater major to graduate Pratt. I was the last when they ended the major. So that was kind of funny that the 2 of us ended up working together so much.
That's great.
So Kermit had me go to his studio, and which was on Great Jones Street, which is like 3rd Street and Broadway. It's really 3rd Street, but the 2 blocks they call it Great Jones Street. His loft is still there. Somebody's living in it now. But when in the 70s, that was kind of an interesting place, that area.
I bet an 8-foot-tall bird was the least strange thing you'd see walking out.
Yeah. So when I first started working there, I was just helping out on projects and stuff. Kermit had just started getting work. He was building a lot of the international Sesame Street characters and designing them there. This was before Henson wanted to do them. I mean, Henson was like busy with the Muppet Show and all their films and stuff, so they didn't even consider it. So, a lot of those got built, so I would help out. And then through it, I got a job. That summer, I worked full time, and then all through school, they just came up with internships. They made up numbers. They ran out of internships, so this, that, and the other thing. I I was off campus a lot, getting credits and working and doing, started doing some TV commercials and stuff. I'd be the animator. He didn't really have a puppeteer working for him that could animate also. So I did a lot of the early stuff.
So then when he closed his shop down a few years later, is that when 3 Design happened?
Yeah, basically, I worked for Kermit. It's kind of a funny story.
Hey, can you give us a little snapshot of Kermit too? Kind of like his personality, because I know I've heard some funny stories you've told of him in the past.
Yeah, he was one of those guys
visiting the workshop and go, "Oh, what are you working on over here?" and kind of
stealing wacky stuff.
Lots of mind games.
Yeah,
he'd play.
Yeah,
he would do. So after working with him for a few years, then you kind of get used to it, and then I decided, oh, I can do mind games too. So I would do things back to him. But he would, my one of my favorite memories of him was my first time I worked for him, legitimately worked for him, and got a paycheck. And he hands me my paycheck. He kind of goes, he goes to put it to me, and then pulls it away and goes, "You're not going to buy drugs with it, are you?" So I was like, "No, I promise I won't buy drugs. Bought lots of beer, but no drugs." So, but that's the way he was. He was sort of like, and he looked like Santa Claus. He had a big white beard, and, and it was great. And he was kind of an interesting guy. I mean, I learned a lot from him, both good and bad. Like when I opened up my own shop, I knew exactly how not to run it. Type of thing. I mean, I worked for him for 8 years, almost 9 years, and never got a 1099 or a W-2 out of the guy.
Nope.
And that's what basically shut him down.
Okay.
Caught up with him.
Oh yeah.
So he basically had us move the shop, and we were buying the equipment. Like we would buy the bandsaws, and we owned them, because he wouldn't spend money on the shop. Because to him, it was, I think it was like a hobby to him.
Oh, so you just bought the stuff to make your own job easier.
Right. Basically, yeah.
I know how that's life as a teacher. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
So he had us move all the stuff out really fast, and then and he thought we should all retire. And I was like 21, maybe I was 20. And I'm like, well, that's great, but I have no money. That whole thing.
Right.
So so that's how 3 Design came about. And at that time was John Orberg, Matt Stoddard, and myself. Were like the 3 central guys at Kermit's shop. So we decided to open up our own shop. And our very first thing we ever did was I went
taxes? Right?
Yeah, I did my taxes. No, I learned early on. I'll give some tax advice, whoever's listening out there. It was passed on to me from a very good accountant who's since retired. But her take on it was, you never, ever, ever, ever lie about your income. Make up any story, write off whatever you want. Worst case scenario, they deny it. But once you've lied about your income, you're a marked man or woman.
Oh, yeah.
So don't do that.
Yeah, for
but anyway, so to this day, I'm always honest that way. To a fault, especially this year.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what was I saying?
So you were just starting 3 Designs, your first design job.
Oh, our first design job. So we went to R. Greenberg Associates, which was this big film production house in New York City. They did all the trailers, and at that time they had just won an Academy Award because they did. Remember the original Superman movie where the Superman thing came shooting right at the lens and went past it and did all that stuff? Predator, they did all the Predator effects. That they were winning all these awards. So we went in to do this blue screen dancing clothing thing commercial for Germany. Grundig Hi-Fi, and we had never done blue screen. We've done some Ultimat. Then it was called Chroma Key,
Yeah.
So we basically went in, and just from what would look through magazines, you see how it's done. You go, oh yeah. So basically, I lied through my teeth about what we've done and the way we would approach this and stuff. Well, anyway, to make a long story short, the commercial ends up winning like 3 or 4 Clio Awards, which were like the Academy Awards of the commercials that it were made. I don't know if they still have it anymore, but so the first thing we did was, so suddenly we're gold, good as gold with R. Greenberg, and we just got a ton of work right after that. It was a really good spot, though. It was shown in theaters, which was nice. So it was done in the very theatrical, real good production values, and blue screen. not like not like today. There was no digital. It was all film cutting. I got to sit in on the cuts.
Wow.
Because breaking down the rigs, you build multiple rigs. Rig A will get you from here to there, and then you go to B, and then you try to make it seamless. So the director, very nice guy, was very cool about having me sit there with the editor, and it was like literally cut and paste the film, the old school stuff. So it was a lot of fun.
Holy cow.
And you learn a lot, which is it's all about learning.
Right.
Nobody has it in them, or if you do, you still have to learn to release it. Get it to come out of you. So
Are you
So
still
the
technically
opportunity.
working under that name as yourself, 3D Design, or no?
3 Design still exists, but not. Yeah, I don't know. John is retired. Because John's like 10 years older than me. 10? Well, maybe not quite 10, and Matt is retired. He had health issues and stuff. Not from barge and plastics and stuff.
No.
He liked his cigarettes.
Those do
big
nothing
time.
to your health.
That's
No,
right.
they haven't done it. Look, can you believe it?
That's
I'm
right.
27 years old. Do I look 20?
Well, do you know what it is? I think that mustache is a natural respirator. Is that what it is?
Yeah,
Your
that's what
mustache
it is.
filters out all the fumes and stuff. That's right.
No, actually, the white beard and the white mustache came about right after I went through my whole cancer thing. But to talk about this, my concern with the cancer was, did the barge do this to me? This
that's right, yeah.
cancer I had and all. And it was cancer of the appendix. So the doctor's like, oh, no. I sand a lot of plastics. I'm breathing in stuff. They go, nah. I said, really, docs? How can you be so sure? I've been doing this for like 30 some odd years. They said, oh, your lungs are great. Nothing wrong with your lungs. And that would be the first thing that, it would vapors. And they said, it's not like you do it 24/7. You're not, I'm not a, 9-to-5 job in a factory gluing shoes together all day and smelling,
Right.
Yeah,
glue and
that's
stuff.
true.
So anyway, all right, so let's get back to what we were talking about. All right,
Well, so
Kermit-
you're doing 3 Design, and so when does the jump then happen to Henson?
yeah,
Because it looks like
the
we were going through the filmography. It looks like Muppets Take Manhattan was the first thing that you worked on. Is that true?
Well, yeah, that was the first. Let me see, was it the Muppets? Yeah, the Muppets Take Manhattan. I went to the auditions, and I got hired as an extra puppeteer that would be there all the time. And from that, we started doing. I started doing more puppeteering with them on their meeting films and stuff like that.
Okay.
When they did their big films, I was in school. Again, most of that stuff was the 70s, and I graduated, college in 80. So that part was kind of like, Kathy Mullen, one of the Muppeteers, always says, "You were born 10 years too late. You would have been a perfect fit at a certain point."
Right.
But now that once things happened there, Jim died and stuff, it all kind of became something else.
Yeah.
So from that, I didn't build for Henson for years, and we had our own shop at this point, which was kind of funny because, maybe not so funny. We were being, we got like sued a little bit by Henson. This was after Jim died.
Oh yeah.
We had built a show for Canada called Wimzie's House, and the puppets were designed by someone in, was it Quebec? Might have been Quebec. But anyway, so we tweaked the designs to make them more puppet friendly and stuff. So anyway, the show was out there for like 2 years, and then at Toy Fair, the 3rd year, they got a lot of interest in them for whatever reason. So anyway, Henson was in the process of selling the organization again. So we got into a little bit of trouble with that because they felt the characters looked too close to a lot of the Fraggle characters and stuff.
Gotcha.
Which, yes and no. We always have this thing because it is a similar style, similar materials we're using on our puppets. There's no advantage for people thinking our puppets are the Muppets. So we consciously go as much of a different route as we can.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually had a talk with Jim before he died about this earlier on. We first opened our shop. And it was kind of nice. It was kind of like, he loved what we were doing. And he just sort of said, as far away from our look as you can stay. And I'm like, okay, which look, Jim? If you think of the original Muppets.
Yeah.
At that time, they had just done, I think the Jim Henson hour was being done. That's what it was. So you look at those puppets; they're very different looking. The dark crystal,
absolutely.
Things like that. So he was like, "Oh yeah, it is hard." I said, "Yeah, but believe me, we will."
Mm-hmm.
No green frogs.
Yeah.
And we never use blue fake fur. We never use blue fake fur for any of our monster characters, because think of all their monsters; they're all blue fur. It's just one of those things. So
no. But because there's really only a certain scale you could work in. It's not like you could make them much smaller or even too bigger. You can't perform them.
Yeah. But it's so when I'm working with Henson as a performer, I also had my own shop. Building. So then years later, when I'm trying to think, wow, it's a long time. It's over many years.
Sure.
But now I'm like building for Henson all of a sudden again. I was brought in. I don't know why I was brought in to build some mechs, because they had the mech builders, Tom Newby, Tim Miller. They built great stuff. But I think, Cameron, you said it. They're not puppeteers. So their stuff, to me, needed to be tweaked. Or was Adam who said that?
No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know. One of you.
No, I didn't. I'm just kidding.
I only have one ear.
No, I know. We look like twins. No, I'm just kidding. No, we rip on each other all the time about that. That's what that is. Sorry, sorry. Go on.
So from that, what was I saying? See, now you got me all confused.
No, but the idea of the mechs being built by a puppeteer versus an engineer.
Oh yeah. So again, I fell into it because using their stuff when we were shooting all the different things, in my mind, I was redesigning it in my mind. So then I started building a lot more stuff with 3D design. We'd get a little fancier cable control stuff. We were getting into all that stuff. So I got called into Henson. I guess they were really busy and they wanted me to build an iMech. So, they had their guys, but I guess they were busy doing all this other stuff. So, all right, so I built an iMech, and 3 days later, they had an iMech to put into the head. Well, they were really impressed with the iMech, and they were super impressed. It showed up in 3 days,
Yeah.
They said, "Oh, that's pretty good." And I'm like, "Well, why? Should it take longer? I could, easily." But to me, it's like, it's only 3 days because I had to paint it. If I didn't have to paint it, you would have had to too. So through working with them, I started getting like a lot of mech jobs through them. And it was funny because I didn't know how to charge for the mechs. So I would always say, "Well, what do you want to spend?" And they'd say whatever, and I'd say, "Oh, okay, I'll do it for that," which was nowhere near what I would have ever asked for. Because it's like, Henson now is like, everything's like 3 days to do that and 2 days to do that. And I'm thinking, well, whenever I work for Henson now, I do a flat fee. And then it's my problem to deliver it. And because I'm like, I don't know, if something goes wrong and I got to deliver it in 3 days, because that's in your mind, you're paying me for 3 days. What's it to you if I take 4 days to build it? It's on me.
Right.
So they love that too. They love the fact that I don't do timesheets. I don't do things like that. Never have. I just go in and I send them a bill. So it's great that way. And then it's better for me too, because the pressure. Sometimes when you're building this stuff, like today, I'm working on working on things. You just stop. I had enough for the day. Something's not working right. And I'll go to bed and I'll think about it. And in the morning, it'll all be like figured out in my head, and then we'll do it. But in the meanwhile, I'm not going to stay up all night, driving myself crazy, like the old days. But,
oh gosh!
Can you talk about that? Can you talk about that process a little bit of how much of the mech designing happens in your head versus are you making mock-ups with the actual material, or
You're
just
doing drawings,
or rubber bands and strings and stuff? Like what could you walk us through your process a little bit?
Yeah, what I usually do is I'll do a rough sketch, like the O'Neill thing I'm doing this year. It's kind of a cool mech. It's a double mech.
You already have it planned out?
Oh, it's done. I just
It's
have to,
done?
Yeah, I know, it's early for me. Yeah, I had to though, because right after the O'Neill, we're going into a shoot. Oh, you should see this bird I just built. It's the same people, but it's for the anti-panda shoot we're doing. We're teaching French children in some school in France how to speak Chinese. So it's a whole bunch of Chinese characters, and I just built my character is this old caretaker, Wu. He's like this old guy, and he's got long hair, long mustache and stuff. So I built a bird version of him. His pet is a bird, but it looks like him. But I built it on a perch with a single dowel, and everything runs through the dowel. But it's just a cool little and then I built a version that the perch is empty, and there's like a Muppet rat type version where you can have them around. Nice. Totally mechanical, all cable, Teflons and stuff. For the O'Neill thing, let's go back to the O'Neill thing. What I just did was I do a pencil sketch, and it's more to remind me what I wanted to do, and then I'll start marking the points and what have you. And then I used to do mock-ups, like just start hot gluing everything together with bent paper clips or a scrap of wire, and just basically get it all to work and see what the problems are. And then you go and build the official one. Now, because I guess partly I just do it for so long, I kind of like, even the mock-up is pretty good. Yeah. You know, like I'll take the time to do it right, because then it actually saves you steps later on. What I do discover though is, and what I try to clear up, like going to the O'Neill, is the order of assembly. So all of a sudden, oh God, I take it all apart if I got to put that there. So, you know, I figure that kind of stuff all out. But with mechs in general now, I have a handful of principles, and I just apply them differently. And my controls are pretty much what they are. You know, I always say to my class or everyone, I said, you know, when I'm done not doing this anymore, my claim to fame or gift to the puppetry world is my double trigger. I think my slide and my trigger thing. You guys have probably built that. So we'll be building those this year too, because they're just, you know, you got an arm wire control, and there's a double trigger on it, so you can work two mechanisms at the same time. You know, the one hand. So it's on everything. We actually developed that when we built the Book of Pooh puppets, the Boom Raccoon versions that were done for the Book of Pooh in a green room. That way the head performer, I like to give the head performer, if there's a lot of articulation in the face, try to give him as much control over that, because I always find from a performer's point of view, I like having control over the eyes, because I feel like you can do things with the puppet that somebody else pulling a cable, it's hit or miss. Yeah. And when you're in a shoot, hit or miss means you live with it and you move on, whether they got it or not. You know, especially nowadays, it's all done quickly and on the cheap. Yeah. So, you know, and that's the way it is out there. So you try to figure out stuff that makes that happen too. That makes you valuable. You know?
Can you talk a bit about this? Yeah, but so you've got obviously like the typical hand puppet. You think of, you know, Fozzie or Kermit or whatever. So we in the puppetry community know why you would want a mech, but can you talk about, because you kind of have your principles of why even put a mech in a puppet?
Right. Well, my two basic rules about mechanisms are, if you're putting a mech into a puppet, puppets are somewhat limited. When you sculpt a puppet, it usually has a look, or whatever that look is. So the mechanism, whatever can help change that look, like pop open eyes. Yeah. You know, if they're closed, he's like concerned. But when it goes like that, you know, that to me is the greatest mech in the world. That you can get 100 miles out every performance. It's just so, it reads so beautifully and stuff like that. So they should help you in the puppeteering. Getting character across. And again, you might design the mech that, if he's a sneaky character, you just want eyes that go back and forth, like, The other way, the other reason to use mechs is you can't fit a hand always inside. It's a small puppet, or it's a thin puppet, or whatever. But the ultimate rule of puppetry is, it's a good mech when you're not even aware of it.
Yeah.
See, to me, sometimes you give these puppets, I won't mention names, but there was a thing where a puppet had moving ears. So his idea was to do this a lot. Look, the ears are moving. And I'm like, no, the ears should be expressive. If you want to, he listens, or he gets depressed. But when you work in the mech like this, you're not getting it. I'm not giving you a mech next time. And that's with any mech, It's like, wait, what did I just see? Oh, did you see anybody watching American Idol? Did you see the Disney night at American Idol?
No.
Google it. Look at it. Because they got the Disney characters on there. They redid the Disney heads. They have eye blinks now.
Oh, okay, yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
And lip sync. It's all, I guess it's radio controlled, or maybe the guy's working it with his hand inside the big hands.
Right.
But talk about not knowing how to use it. It was like they were just blinking nonstop, as opposed to bringing him down. And when he laughs, pop him open. It's like they don't understand the mech. So to me, that's to me a very important aspect of mechanisms. Less is more. It's the old saying.
A lot of people just use it as a gag rather than enhancing the puppetry itself.
Right. Which to me is like, okay, there are those mechs too. Yeah, I've built those plenty of times. But you'll use it that one time or at the appropriate time, and it's great. Okay. But stuff like eyes, to me, I don't like to. A lot of people think the mechs are on or off. I like to ride a mech. So if you have a set of eyes that can open and close as you're performing, you should just constantly always be the eyes. Your own face does. Facial expressions you do when you react and you laugh, you squint. It's also the mechs we did last year were actually really good at the O'Neill. They were upper and lower lids. But they were independently controlled. So you could control just the bottom lids or the uppers or together to get the blink.
Yeah.
And miles and miles of expression. And it was just, that's all we built on a dome. It would go into a head, type of thing. It wasn't a finished puppet or anything, but just the eyes themselves. And on the double trigger, so one person can control both things. So I mean, to me, that's super important. A lot of times, puppeteers will tell me, all right, I hate mechanisms. Please don't give me a mech. Okay. You're not getting a mech.
That's right.
Well, if they're not going to be used right, I'd rather they didn't happen in the first place. That's for sure. So what else? What else do you need to know?
Well, one thing I was thinking is now that since we're on O'Neill a little bit, I was very grateful to be a part of the Howdy-Doody show for the 25th season. And one thing we had some other people wondering about too is that ever coming back for round 2, or do you have any other plans or other shows? Is that going to be for the 50th season when you do it, or?
No, we're going to. I was thinking of coming. Yeah, there is a second part of the Howdy-Doody show that I wanted to do.
Can you describe that a little bit for people who don't?
Thank you.
Yeah,
because there's a wonderful history to that project.
Yeah, it was something
Sorry for glossing over that.
Well, I started doing birthday parties again with my kids. Partly there wasn't much work after 9/11. The work kind of really dried up. So we started doing puppet shows, and one of the shows I came up with was all based upon something my brother gave me. My brother worked in the music industry. He bounced from job to job, and one of the jobs he had, which was a great job, he worked in a audio library. And basically all he did all day was download CDs into the system and break it all up and put it in appropriate categories and stuff. And then he got to keep, they either throw the CD away or he asked, and they say, yeah, take whatever you want. So he would bring me all the really weird CDs because he knows I like strange music and stuff. And one of them he brought me was all cowboy music from the 40s, Stampede and all that. And to me, they're just such fun, crazy songs. And whenever I hear them, I would visualize a puppet bit, you know. So that's where, so we put this show together with and I had my kids doing the shows with me, you know, and they were like, you know, in elementary school when they started doing this. And from that, I said, oh, someday, and then, well, going back to the O'Neill, Pam was always bugging me to do the full week. I only do the pre-conference with my class, my 3-day class. So I always said to her, I'll do the 25th anniversary, thinking, yeah, that's, you know, years away. Well, until that one year where Pam's like, you know, next year is the 25th anniversary, so we can count on you, right? And I'm like, oh, yeah, sure, right.
Yeah, I knew that.
We took the show, and basically what it is, it's a variety show hosted by Grandpa, who was it hosted by? Grandpa Jimbo, right? Was it Jimbo? Right, it was Grandpa Jimbo, which was his radio control head, John Littlewar, and I was off stage doing the voice and working the RC stuff. And it was a variety show based upon these great classic cowboy songs. High Noon, Do Not Forsake Me, Oh My Darling, which I was amazed that the kid who was Austin had never seen High Noon. I said, what do you mean you've never seen High Noon? What have you been doing your whole life? You're not watching old movies?
That's right.
Go out and rent High Noon. So anyway, and it's a variety show with all different types of puppets in it, body puppets. And whenever I designed my shows I was doing for birthday parties, the whole point was to introduce kids to lots of different type of puppetry. So there were rod puppets. I didn't do marionettes. I did them one year, and it was just nightmarish. I'm not really a good marionette person, and I can animate a marionette, but I can't seem to get them from point A to point B without getting all tangled up. So I was like, all right, we're not doing marionettes anymore. But the idea was to show all different types, mechanical puppets, little puppets, big puppets, you know, and introduce it to you know, little kids. And then I said, well, I always wanted to do it on a big scale. Let's do it in the barn at the O'Neill, and we'll do a big Howdy-Do show. And I thought that, and it's the Howdy-Do show because the barn is the Margot and Rufus Rose, which are the puppeteers who did Howdy-Doody. So the Howdy-Do show was a play on that, you know.
Right.
And it was a lot of fun, and I had a great. Well, Adam did it with us, and everyone. I mean,
everyone had a great time. We even gave ourselves a name, the Croupies.
The Croupies,
we were the Croupies. Yeah, we wanted to make. I think someone actually designed a T-shirt. Was it Lex? Maybe someone did. We actually have a Croupies Facebook group with just the people that were involved in that. So every once in a while, there's a message or something. So, we really got close.
So when we did the show, I basically, there were probably a couple of new bits and some of the old bits from the birthday party show that I could then upgrade, because my kids weren't good with the lip sync stuff, so most of the puppets were all pull a trigger and work the mouths type thing for my kids to do it. So I got to rebuild the show, which is kind of nice. You know, you've done that too, I'm sure, where you build it and use it and say, rebuild it and make it so much better. So, but there's a second part of the show where, and then ultimately the plan was, if it ever happens, take the best from both shows and then put together a show and sell it to Dollywood and have them perform live, you know, 8 times a day. But we'll see about that. So anyway, that was the Howdy-Do show. Yeah. Why did we get on that? What was that about?
Well, Cam brought it back to the history of it. But the idea was, is there anything next for that? Or I think I remember you saying you also had ideas for like a space version of a show, or you had other ideas of shows.
No, it was underwater. I did
underwater.
An underwater show at Pratt with a friend of mine, and then I redid it. I taught out at Kingsborough Community College one year. I covered for a teacher who was out on a sabbatical, and we did this underwater variety show. It's all like variety shows because I like, you know, I don't do heavy dialogue shows. I'd rather put music on and just have visual stuff going on and all that. So when I went to Kingsborough, it was kind of interesting. They showed me their theater, which was like a 1,200 seat theater with like a little mini Broadway theater where you could fly stuff, and it was like a real stage, you know. I said, oh, this would be great for a puppet show, and they're like, oh, well, no, we do our theatrical productions in here. Yeah, we'll show you the puppet thing. So they take me downstairs into the catacombs in this room where at one end they have like, they painted it black, and it was just like, you know, somebody's basement, and they threw a stage up. And I'm like, well, why can't I use the stage? So I went to the head of the department. I said, I want the big stage. So they ended up busing in like 800 kids from all the local schools when we did the show, and it was a huge hit and all that stuff. So anyways, this underwater show, and it's kind of cool. It opens up with Handel's Water Music is the whole opening. And then there's a lot of political stuff in it, like fish being eaten for certain reasons, and then we dealt with polluting the oceans, and what was happening with that. So it would be an interesting show. I'd scale it down. What we did at the school would probably be too much to try to get done in the week, because we took the entire semester basically to get the show pulled together. So there's that possibility. That wouldn't be probably. I said maybe. I'm waiting for my daughter to graduate. It'll be my last child from college, and then I have that sort of out of the way. So she graduates in a year, so it would be after that. So it's not that far away. No, I would come back and definitely do it again.
So although you know what? Sierra was listening.
Yeah,
she could mark the O'Neill calendar for 2020.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah,
had a good time.
It was a super fun show.
And we lucked out. I would say I lucked out puppeteer-wise. But, you know, I mean, everybody was just so into it and stuff. Except me. I wasn't so into
it. Oh, God.
Well, one last question before we kind of wrap up, because we kind of jumped over the 90s, which I think was a real big boom for television puppetry, that you certainly had a hand in. Can you talk about? I didn't get that one, but and if you want to talk about any of those shows, I'm sure people would love to hear about it. But more, what I'm wondering is what has the transition been like from the 90s into the aughts and where we are now? Like, just how have you seen the world of puppetry change over these last 20, 25 years or so? Because it seems like a pretty dramatic shift, but you seem to weather it pretty well.
Yeah, in the beginning, our first big claim to fame was when we got to do Eureka's Castle for Nickelodeon when they first started. It was like the second or third show they produced. Nickelodeon was mostly just buying pre-made stuff.
Right.
And I would say my entire career, those, it was like 3 years we worked on it, were fantastic for the simple reason that the producers left us alone. It was like we would sit there and make it funny, make ourselves laugh, do things. No, there wasn't the restraints you have now, and the committees and everything. You know, I always laugh with Disney, and it's like you know, we shot the first season of Johnny and the Sprites, and it just took forever. And they had a meeting afterwards, and they said, "Wow, what could we do season 2 to make it all go smoother?" I said, "Well, let's not get anywhere near a studio till everyone in this room who has a say works out the script, and then we shoot with the script, because you changes they you know, or not being able to make a decision because it's 6 or 7 or 8 people trying to make the same decision. That's a problem." So back then, when we did this show, Eureka's Castle, they literally we sat around and we sat there with the script writers, who was Jovial Bob Stein. Now probably everybody's going, "Who's that?" Well, he went on to become R.L. Stein, Goosebumps.
Oh, wow.
So Jovial Bob Stein, before he did Goosebumps, wrote all of Eureka's Castle, except what was happening was I'll tell you a funny story about Bob. We would do read-throughs. So you have the script, and you'd read what Bob wrote, and you'd say, "Oh, he's setting up that joke. Oh, that's such a good joke." Oh, and you turn the page, and the punchline's not there. So you go, "Gee, Bob, you know, if I said blah, blah, blah right there, wouldn't that be fun?" "Yeah, write that in. So we started going over his scripts and yucking them up and looking for things like that. And I'm not crazy about too much verbal humor. As long as there's enough visual humor going on at the same time. So
And that show was packed with it.
Yeah, and then at one point, Bob actually said to me, he says, look, you're rewriting all this stuff. You're adding all this stuff. Why don't you just write a bunch of scripts, submit them, and I'll get you paid. So I started writing the scripts, and it was all like, and again, it's like nothing's original, really. Because most of what I was doing was old Abbott and Costello I grew up on, and the Three Stooges, and that kind of shtick, and then that kind of visual stuff. So started doing that. And then from Eureka's Castle, we've done a bunch of other shows over the years. Gullah Gullah Island for Nickelodeon was like right after that, or shortly after that. And
did you build the puppets for Bear in the Big Blue House, or was that Henson?
No, Henson built those. I was actually brought into that. That's a funny story too. I auditioned for it, but I'm a horrible auditioner. I can't audition.
Yeah.
I don't even bother anymore. You either want to hire me or you don't.
Here's my number.
You won't hire me based on my audition. Trust me. So I'll tell you. It's a long story. Well, it's not long. I can make it really short. We're down in Florida shooting a spin-off of Gullah Gullah Island, which was that show with Natalie, a black couple that lived in the Gullah area of South Carolina, the shrimping area.
Yeah.
And they had this giant yellow frog that was this puppet we built, and it was a bodysuit.
I remember.
Binyah Binyah.
Yeah, Binyah Binyah. And I was the pelican on the show, Chanson the pelican.
Oh, that's right.
Because I could do this. That was his noise he could make when he.
So that was your audition right there, right?
Yeah.
Is that all he did?
Basically, that's all he did. They wanted him to make lots of noises, so that was the one noise he used to do a lot. So anyway, they're doing this spin-off, and they're just it's a radio script. And what I mean is it's all this. The puppets aren't doing anything but delivering lines.
Right.
So I'm trying to yuck it up. Things are happening. So finally, the director on the show, I won't mention names, he comes up to me at lunchtime and says, this next scene, there's nothing going on. Can you figure out some business or something? So I said, sure. So I spent my lunch hour with a couple of the other puppeteers figuring out this bit. So we get back from lunch, and they set it up, and we start doing the bit, and the producers are standing there, and they're like, what's going on? What is this? No, we just want the puppets to stand there. And I'm going, no. But the director, blah, blah, blah. And he's standing there, the director, and he's not saying a word. And I'm like trying to sell what we're doing here because it's visually funny and there's stuff going on. At the end of my spiel, the director looks at me, looks at the producer, and says, well, if Jim's done wasting our time, let's go on and well, that was it. That was the moment, or the first moment I quit puppetry. I was done. I walked out of the studio into my Winnebago, which was parked outside the studio, and I refused to come to the set. It was the last day of shooting. I said, you know what? Finish it yourself, guys. I give up.
Yeah.
So they were on the walkie-talkie trying to get me. I throw the walkie-talkie under the table. I'm sitting on the damn. I said, no, this is it. If this is what it's going to be, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing this. I got to be happy. I got to, amuse myself. The phone rings. So I'm thinking, son of a gun. They couldn't get me. This was before cell phones. There's a regular phone. So I pick it up. I go, what do you want? I hear, Jim? I go, Noel? It's Noel McNeil. I said, hey, Noel, what's going on? He said, we just started shooting Bear this week. You want to work on Bear? We need another puppeteer.
Oh, my gosh.
So I'm thinking, all right, yeah, I could probably do Bear. All right, so that's how I ended up on Bear.
Okay.
Wow.
And not at some bowling alley, cleaning shoes or something.
Yeah. It's a whole karma, right? How did Binyah Binyah end up? The costume, it's a loaded question because I know the answer. But go ahead, tell us.
Well, they were shooting these 4 pilots, the spin-off. I'm not going to tell you about the guy. You want me to talk about the guy?
No. I mean the costume. Something. If I remember, something happened to it. If I remember.
Yeah, that was the last. Yeah, that was during that same. No, it was probably the following year when they were shooting on location. Yeah, I'll tell that story in a second. With the pilots though, with all the stuff that they didn't want to do, the producers delivered the 4 pilots, and the heads of Nickelodeon said, well, there isn't much going on. We already have a show like this. We already have Gullah Gullah Island. So we were trying to make it more of a puppet show with lots more puppets and lots more stuff going on. And they were just trying to rip off their own show, keeping it like dumbed down. So it didn't get picked up. It just got mixed into the batch. But anyway, what happened to the costume was the following year, they were shooting on location in South Carolina on a beach. And the guy's wearing a foam body and a head and all this stuff. And it got soaking wet. I mean, the suit is dripping wet. And they've wrapped, and rather than air out the suit, they threw it all in the fiber box that they ship it in, gave it to FedEx to send back to New York on a Friday. So we didn't get it till like Tuesday. We opened up this box, which should have this bright yellow frog in it, and it's just black mold. That's what grew on it. It must have sat on some loading dock down there cooking, and all these mushrooms and stuff all over it. So they basically had to make another suit right after that.
Oh my god!
So anyway,
I think the last thing that we were kind of just hoping to just get from you is, you've obviously been doing this for a while, and you came into it from a love of puppetry, but obviously you've seen a lot of things. You've been a part of a lot of things. How do you continue to enjoy the art form after all these years? Like, are you able to watch either projects that you've done or projects that had inspired you, or are you just constantly thinking about mechs and, oh, I would have done that differently, or any of that kind of stuff?
When the whole CG thing came about, everybody thought puppetry was dead. It was never gonna, that was it. That was the final nail in the coffin. And we just stuck to our guns at our shop. We were totally old school approach. I have no problems with CG. I believe CG can be used to enhance puppetry, just like mechanisms do.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't replace it. So I'm okay with that kind of stuff. But I see it coming back a little bit to the old school. I mean, we're doing all these films. If you look up No Strings International, we do these disaster films which get shown all over the world to educate people who are living in jungles and stuff like that, what to do in an earthquake and stuff. And we do it with a little bit of humor, but it's total puppet shows. And it's such a great thing on its own. It doesn't need all the bells and whistles. So I kind of stick to my guns that way. Our show was like that. Our show didn't have, we dressed in black. That was that was our special effect. You didn't see the puppeteers too easily. I see it. I kind of like what's happening out there, and I love seeing like every now and then there is new stuff out there, like Mr. Meaty. I used to like that one for a while there too. I thought that, and then the guys produced that in their garage, like up in Canada or somewhere wherever they were from. And it's like that to me is what puppetry is all about. It shouldn't be so like, I don't know. I think entertainment in general, it all became your comedy shows. It's all cookie cutter stuff. You don't. It's hard to watch most of TV for me anyway, because it's all the same. And what's cool about puppetry, it never has to be the same. You could give the same assignment to 12 puppeteers, and they'll come up with 12 different things, and every one of them's different and enjoyable. So I think that's what's cool about our field, man. It's like that's just what you guys do. What I teach you. You say, oh, you teach this stuff. Yeah. Well, if I can implant a little bit of my seed into your head, that when you make mechs, that you see it, you get what I'm preaching all the time, and so you incorporate that into your puppet building. I think that's a cool thing. But I do like a lot of what's going on out there, and I like I'm curious to see stuff going forward, whether or not it rides this weird wave. I mean, there is so much CG stuff right now that you can't tell. You look at the very first Jurassic Park, which was like the big CG claim to fame when they did those dinosaurs. Well, just remember, 50% of the time, those were puppets too. Yeah. And I think that is key. Don't remove the human element from it. and I think it'll the final result is 10 times better than all CG or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, that's I think a good place to wrap.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Jim. Hopefully, we'd love to have you on again in the future. And yeah, thank you for your time.
I'll have to check. Let me know who's on when. I'll have to be a viewer too, you know.
Oh, yeah, that's
absolutely.
Right. Well, it'll be a little interesting because I accidentally was not recording our visual for the first like 20 minutes on accident, and I got up and walked over, turned it on. So they'll see a lot of you in the beginning.
So it's just me, okay.
Yeah. Well, again, being our first one, still working out a couple of the kinks, but yeah, we're excited for sure.
You could just reshoot yourselves and just mime your words.
Absolutely.
That actually went through my head. I was like, this is ridiculous. what? Yeah, but yeah.
Well, that's cool. All right. Well, I'm glad. I'm happy to do it for you, and good luck with it.
Thank you so much.
And we're going to see you at the O'Neill. You guys coming down? You think, or you don't know?
I'm really hoping. I'm on the wait list as of right now, but I'm trying real hard to get into Philip Huber's Strand. So hopefully I will see you there. It's
become so popular. I'm afraid that it gets too big.
Yeah.
I felt last year and I'm only there for the 3-day thing.
Right.
It was jammed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had to eat lunch in shifts, and I'm sitting there like, I don't know. I like it when it's a little more intimate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I haven't talked to them yet about my class this year, but I'm hoping. I think I had 17 last year, and it was okay. But
yeah, that's not too bad. I think when I did it, there was like 23 or something like that. Was a lot.
That was that one year where it was way too many.
Yeah.
But I do pre-cut a lot of stuff now because my class was becoming. Here's how you
cut it. Yeah.
How to use tools.
yeah, that's not cool. Yeah, I unfortunately haven't been applied the last couple of years, really since I started trying to get into a long-term job for teaching. But again, this year I just finally got that.
I know.
My last job, I'm so excited about it. So once I'm tenure, which only takes now it takes 4 years, used to take 3 years.
Yeah.
Now that once I'm tenure, I can hopefully start to be able to have a little bit more flexibility and so then.
Well, my wife's a teacher, and I keep tabs on you because you're friends with her on Facebook.
That's right. Facebook. Yeah, she's great. No, I love the stuff she does too. It's wonderful.
But congratulations on your wedding too and stuff. I saw the dresses and all that stuff. And actually, you were on the local news here. That video you did about the dress, they picked it up, and it was on our local station here too.
Yeah, I remember because
it was on New York.
Yeah, it was. I didn't even realize that they did it as a local thing, but I guess what they do is they kind of, I don't know what the term is. It's not syndicated. It is syndicate. Okay.
Affiliates too. A lot of affiliates.
Yeah, affiliates. So that's what it is. The affiliates. And then my mom texts me, and so I'm in Buffalo, New York. We both are, me and Cameron. And my parents live in San Juan Capistrano in California, south of LA. And my mom texted me, it's on their local news. I'm like, what? It's on in California? And then I've gotten a message. Some lady in Australia saw it. That must have been online and wanted me to make her wedding dress too. I was like, oh my God. I tell people, I don't make wedding dresses. I made a wedding dress. Right. I don't make them.
That's what I'm saying. But that's the cool thing about puppetry, And again, everybody has their skill levels and stuff. But with puppetry, you have so many skill levels that you can do that and make it really cool. I had my wedding. What I did with my wedding, just to stay in this whole puppet vein thing, I made. Well, I didn't make them. I built them, but they were flat caricatures of me and Beth, one on one side, one on the other side.
Oh,
and when we did the champagne toast, everybody put their puppet on, and they're holding their champagne glasses. So we got this shot of the entire wedding. Everybody's got their arms up in the air with these puppets on. Yeah. But it's just one of those goofy things to do. But anyway, but to get back to teaching, congratulations on that. And let me tell you, my wife being a teacher, the puppetry field, not to shoot it down or anything, but it's a tough field to be in. Yeah. The work comes and goes, and so it's great when you can have what I call somebody with a real job in the family.
That's right. Yeah. The health insurance is handy, and that's right. Yeah, for sure.
I tell you, man. But but because of that, it allows you that time. So yeah, you'll get your time back.
Yeah.
And because you're super talented, and I love your artwork. The piece that sticks out in my mind when you did the bubble gum, the balloons, the bubble gum.
Oh yeah,
portraits.
that's a fun project. Yeah, the kids.
Oh
go
my
nuts for it.
God,
Yeah.
that was so cool.
Isn't it fun? Yeah, they go
Yeah.
nuts for it too. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's nice about when I hang that too on the walls, after a while they start to just deflate, and people are like, oh, are you going to replace the balloons? You can take the art down. I was like, no, it looks funny now. Like there's a couple ones that just look like the bubble gum popped on them. I just think it makes it more fun.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah. Actually, there's one more little side thing, separate. About the actual term puppeteers. Me and Cameron have been going back and forth a lot on like how it should look and some logo stuff, which we don't have fully developed yet. We have some ideas. Is it for when you do it, is it one word? Is it two separate words? Does puppeteers?
Oh, that's a good question. See, I pictured my book when I do it. I wanted Howdy-Doody's face like turn, and you just see the one tear
oh, that's
down
right.
his face.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good point. Puppeteers.
Yeah.
I had I mocked up a logo.
Oh, you did? Oh,
I'll kind of. It's on my phone, but it's actually a silhouette of Dave Goals.
Arms.
Yeah, he does. Of Dave Goals and Ronnie Burkett, and
I don't know if you can see the pencil drawing.
Oh yeah, there. I see it. Yeah.
Yeah, but so they're both got their arms either up or down, and fighting through the pain.
That's right.
Now, the only thing I would say with that, not to shoot it down.
No.
Yeah.
It also could say puppeteers, because you don't have the visual.
They both have tears in their eyes, but
they
I
do?
do.
Yeah, it is fun.
Yeah,
okay.
I do see what you're saying though. So we will take that into consideration.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never even thought of that. Interesting. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
Because at one time we had it just pretty much changing.
Who came up with that?
That's right. No, we're excited. You know what? It's so funny because we spent oh my gosh, like 2 weeks at each other's throats over what
we were like
somebody had a divas moment and said, I'm not going to be part of it if that's what this is going to be called. I'm not going to name any names.
No,
but we were going back and forth. What should it be? And then I think it was you. You came like, what if it was puppeteers? And I was like, we got to ask Jim, of course, too. And then you were gracious enough to let us borrow the name, and we love it. It's great.
Yeah.
And the royalty checks in.
See how it plays. Maybe, if it doesn't work out, I'll change my book, I guess.
Yeah. That's right. Oh, there you go. Yeah. Wonderful. Oh, great. All right. Well, sounds like your dinner might be done. We don't want to hold you.
Yeah, the water's boiling.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
I don't know. The dog is looking at me. The dog is like, I want to eat. The heck with you. I want to eat. What's going on?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Great.
Well, anyway.
Thank you so much. This is great.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll see you soon. Maybe at the O'Neill. If not, on the next cast here. This is kind of fun.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Wonderful.
Thanks a lot,
Good luck
Jim.
with
so much, Jim.
All right. Thanks.
We'll see you again.
Have a nice night.
Soon.
Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.